You've probably seen this clip already, but something about it doesn't feel right. In the middle of the noise, the lights, the cheers, Park Jimin suddenly leans in, covering his mouth, and whispers something directly to Kim Seok-jin. At first, it looks like nothing, just another quiet moment between them. But then everything changes. Jin's expression shifts. Subtle, but unmistakable. His eyes don't meet the crowd the same way. His posture drops, just slightly, like he's holding something in. Fans didn't notice it at first. But once they did, they couldn't unsee it. What did Jimin say in that exact second? Because whatever it was, it didn't just pass by. It stayed with him. And now everyone is asking the same question. Was it just a whisper, or something much deeper that we were never meant to hear? The moment didn't explode all at once. It spread slowly, almost quietly at first, like something people weren't sure they were supposed to notice. A few fans began replaying the clip, zooming in frame by frame, watching how Park Jimin leaned in closer than usual, how his hand instinctively shielded his lips, how his body language carried a weight that didn't match the energy of the stage. It wasn't just a whisper. It looked intentional, careful, almost urgent. And then there was Kim Seok-jin. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. He stood there, still in the middle of a performance filled with lights and cheering fans. But the longer people watched, the more something felt off. His reaction wasn't immediate or dramatic, which somehow made it even more unsettling. It was delayed, subtle, like a ripple moving through still water. His shoulders lowered just slightly. His gaze shifted, not outward toward the crowd, but somewhere inward, as if whatever he had just heard hadn't fully settled yet. Fans began comparing this moment to other performances, searching for patterns, looking for anything that could explain the shift. They noticed how just minutes before, everything seemed normal. The smiles were there. The chemistry felt unchanged. The energy between them was warm and familiar. And yet, in that one small moment, something interrupted the rhythm. Speculation spread quickly. Some believed it was something deeply personal, a message meant only for him in that exact second. Others thought it might have been related to something happening behind the scenes, something the audience wasn't aware of. A few even suggested it could have been a reminder, a warning, or something that carried emotional weight far beyond what could be seen on stage. But no matter the theory, one thing stayed consistent. Everyone felt that something had shifted. What made it even more powerful was how natural it all looked. There was no dramatic reaction, no sudden stop in the performance. Kim Seok-jin continued, just as he was supposed to. He stayed present, stayed professional, never breaking the flow that thousands of people had come to see. But it was the small details that lingered. The way his expression softened, almost fading for a brief second. The way his movements seemed just a little more restrained. The way his presence, while still strong, carried something quieter beneath it. And that's what made fans uneasy. Because this wasn't something obvious. It wasn't meant to be seen. It was the kind of moment that only reveals itself when people look closely enough, when they start connecting emotions rather than just actions. It felt real in a way that couldn't be scripted, and that made it harder to ignore. As the video continued to circulate, more angles appeared, more clips from different perspectives, each one adding another layer to the mystery. Some showed the exact second Park Jimin leaned in. Others captured Kim Seok-jin just moments after, standing still for a fraction longer than expected. None of them gave answers. They only deepened the question. What could be said in just one sentence that would leave such a quiet but lasting impact? There was no confirmation, no statement, nothing official to explain it. And maybe that's what made it so powerful. It remained untouched by explanation, existing only as a moment shared between two people, briefly visible to millions, but understood by none. And somewhere between all the theories, edits, and replays, the feeling remained the same. It wasn't just about what was said. It was about how it was received. What followed didn't feel like a typical viral moment anymore. It began to take on a different kind of weight, something quieter but far more persistent. The clip refused to fade, resurfacing again and again across timelines, each repost pulling in new eyes, new interpretations, New emotions layered on top of something no one could fully explain. People weren't just watching anymore. They were searching. The focus kept returning to that exact second when Park Jimin leaned in, closing the distance in a way that felt unusually deliberate. There was no hesitation in the movement, no sign of it being spontaneous or casual. It looked planned, or at least necessary. The way his expression tightened ever so slightly before the whisper only deepened the tension surrounding it. It wasn't playful. It wasn't light. It carried intent. And then, inevitably, attention shifted back to Kim Seok-jin. The more the footage circulated, the more people noticed how his presence seemed to fracture in subtle ways. It wasn't a visible break, not something that could be pointed out instantly. It was in the pauses. The half-seconds where his focus seemed to slip just enough to be felt, but not fully seen. The way his smile returned, but not with the same fullness as before. It looked like something carefully reconstructed rather than naturally expressed. Fans began isolating micro-expressions, freezing frames at the exact moment his eyes shifted. Some claimed there was a flicker of confusion, others saw something closer to realization, and a few believed it was something heavier, something that settled deeper than either. No one agreed, but everyone felt it. That was the unsettling part. The emotion was there, even if the meaning wasn't. The environment around them didn't change. The stage lights continued to move in perfect synchronization, the music carried forward without interruption, and the energy from the crowd remained overwhelming. Yet somehow, within all that noise, that one moment stood apart. It existed in its own space, untouched by everything happening around it. As more clips surfaced, a pattern began to form, not in what was seen, but in what was missing. There was no follow-up interaction that mirrored the whisper. No visible reassurance, no immediate return to the same dynamic that had been present just moments before. The distance between them, though physically small, felt different after that point. Not broken, not distant, but changed in a way that couldn't be easily defined. Some observers started questioning whether the timing itself held meaning. Why then? Why in the middle of everything, in a moment so exposed, yet so easily hidden? The precision of it made it harder to dismiss. It didn't feel accidental. It felt like something that had to be said exactly then, no sooner, no later. And still, there were no answers. No confirmation surfaced, no behind-the-scenes glimpses that could clarify what had been said. The silence surrounding it only amplified its impact. It allowed the moment to expand, to grow beyond what it originally was, shaped entirely by perception and emotion rather than fact. What made it linger wasn't just the mystery, but the restraint. Kim Seok-jin didn't react in a way that demanded attention. He didn't step away or visibly falter. He stayed exactly where he needed to be, continuing forward with a composure that almost masked everything. Almost. Because in those barely noticeable shifts, something real slipped through. And that was enough. Even now, long after the clip first appeared, people keep returning to it, convinced that there is something they missed the first time. Something hidden between frames, between expressions, between seconds that passed too quickly to fully understand. Maybe it was just a sentence. Or maybe it was something that was never meant to be heard at all, only felt in the quiet aftermath it left behind.